Hello and welcome to Trade HQ. What an introduction. This man needs no welcome. The fans have been calling for this man to make his Trade HQ debut for a week.
Well, there was no one left, let's be honest. They're all at golf.
Welcome to Mick Warner, the number one newsbreaker here.
Yes, thanks, Sammy.
Lots to get through today. We'll get to all your hot information soon. But first of all, Mick, it's day 4. We're at about the 25th hour of trade week, and we have a deal.
We do. It's been moving slower than the federal court case last month, but finally, Jono O'Rourke is a Hawthorn player.
What do you know about him, Mick? Talk us through.
Look, he was picked 2 in 2012, and he's barely, well, if you stood up in your porridge, you wouldn't know him, would you? And in the end, pick 2 value becomes pick 19. What was the exact deal?
So the exact trade is Hawthorn gives up its first 2 picks, which are 19 and 40, and gets O'Rourke and 43 back. So they slide 3 places in the end of the second round, and they get a former number 2 draft pick. So it's in effect O'Rourke for pick 19.
So his value slipped from pick 2, which was probably a mistake, we'd have to say now, that to take him at that. Who was pick 1 that year?
That was Lockie Whitfield. So it was Whitfield, O'Rourke, Plam in the top 3 that year. I think pick 2 is a bit, it's a bit kind. I don't think many clubs would have had O'Rourke pick 2 that year. The Giants had the advantage where they had the top 3 picks. They could sort of just pick off whoever they wanted. Most clubs, I spoke to a couple of recruiters this morning, they said that most clubs rated him in the 8 to 12 bracket that year. Yeah. So that's probably more of his rating in that draft year. There's no doubt he's underperformed since. He's had a few hamstring issues.
What's the bot on him? Where's he falling down? Is his disposal, his work ethic?
Look, I think his real strength was his acceleration, and a few hamstring injuries that sort of curtailed that a bit. So the Hawks will be hoping that they can get him back in their fitness program with Andrew Russell and whatnot. There's no doubt he tapered off at the end of this year. He played 10 games in the NEFL this year. I think his heart was set on coming home. He probably wanted to get out of there a little bit sooner. We actually spoke to him at length before the draft, and he flagged repeatedly that he was hoping to stay in Melbourne. He wanted to go to the Bulldogs at pick 5 that year. He never really wanted to pack up and shift. And
who went to the Bulldogs pick 5?
That was Jake Stringer that year. That was Stringer and McRae. So I think the Dogs would be pretty happy with those 2. But finally a deal done.
Yeah, and when you think about Hawthorn, I mean, they're the masters of these sort of things. Like Gunston, Lake, Burgoyne, McAvoy, Hale, to name a few. I mean, half their premiership side was players that they identified that they said they could make into better players. So, look, they think he's a good one. I mean, they got one wrong last year. That was Dale Garlett.
Yes, worth the punt though. I mean, second round pick. Didn't, that hasn't cost him much. It's pretty scary. They won the last 2 flags and added James Frawley, an All-Australian and a number 2 draft pick. So good luck catching him.
And that's why Carlton went so hard for Graham Wright, who's Hawthorn's list manager, because he's the best in the business, or one of them. And so good luck to Hawthorn. It makes you sick, though, doesn't it, how good they are, Hawthorn?
Yeah, pretty much.
Year after year.
Yeah. Moving on, Mick. Dane Beams, he's been the biggest story for the last couple of weeks now. We are at an impasse. What do you see happening?
Well, I think Collingwood's got a few problems here with this one, because as much as they like to beat their chest and be stubborn and say, we're just not going to do the deal, and they're almost saying to Dane, you'll play for us next year. If we can't get the deal done, you'll just have to suck it up. I'm not sure that's going to work for them. Pick 5 and pick 25 is a fair deal.
Oh, I agree.
So they should do it. The problem they're going to have is it's not just whether it's a fair deal. There's also this other aspect that's with his old man who's ill. So it's not a good look for Collingwood. It'll get done.
Look, I love Decker Hines' comment a couple of days ago. He said,
Decker Hines?
Decker Hines? Yeah.
Who's he?
Derek Hine, Collingwood list manager. Thank you, Mick. Said pick 5 and 25 would be great, but we're not an under-20 side. So they want players in. They've obviously stockpiled the past few years. I think they've had 5 first-round picks in the past 2 years. They want players in. So how this plays out, I'm not too sure. We still think a deal will get done, don't we?
Yeah, and what might help it is if they can get because Alan Christensen comes into the equation, so Brisbane are suddenly trying to get both he and Beams. They can move Joel Patfull to GWS. That looks like that'll happen for, say, pick 21 maybe, which probably overs, but probably. So then they have another. So maybe it could be pick 5 and 21. Maybe that'll work, but it will get done. Dane Beams will not be at Collingwood next year, and you saw that last Friday night when he was at the pub when the Copeland Trophy was on. He didn't want to be within a bull's roar of that joint. There are deep problems at Collingwood. Everyone's sort of, it's the elephant in the room. No one wants to talk about it. He won't be there.
Now, Mick, let's get to the hottest topic. You've been all over this. Reading today's paper that staggering developments in the Paddy Ryder to Port Adelaide move. Fill us in, first of all, for those which haven't caught up, what is going on?
Well, obviously, another two clubs that can't get the deal done, Port Adelaide and Essendon with Paddy Ryder. Now, of course, we know the reasons he wants to leave. He's had a gutful, and as a lot of players have. Port Adelaide's the club he wants to get to. Now, Port only have pick 17, which it isn't enough at the moment to appease the Bombers, who've said that they want Hamish Hartlett or Ollie Wines. That's just ridiculous. It's not going to happen. So they've come up with this ridiculous, farcical, in my opinion, idea, which the AFL appear to be approving, but it's not yet over the line, where they would delist, that they would let Ryder out of their contract, even though he's got 2 years to run. He would then become a free agent. He'd go to Port. Essendon would be compensated with pick 21 because they already have pick 20. Effectively, they'd have pick 17, 20, 21. But it's against the rules.
So you're telling me that...
Well, the spirit of the rules.
So Paddy Ryder's a contracted player, and they can do a deal which effectively punishes every other club by pushing them back in the draft order.
Are
you serious?
Every club with a pick beyond pick 20 effectively will get bumped down the batting order by one. This is a pick that they've just sort of plucked out of thin air, the AFL. So effectively, all the other clubs are going to pay the price. A small price, you might say, just one pick, but
it's principle. And what's to stop every other club down doing this?
Well, this is a good point. So what if you've got a player that you're going to... I mean, why doesn't Collingwood delist Dane Beams tomorrow? He then goes to Brisbane and they get picked 10. Now, can someone at the AFL please explain to me, and I know this happened last year with Nick Del Santo, who was released from his contract a year early to get to North Melbourne.
But that was a trigger, wasn't it? It wasn't a finite contract, wasn't it?
He had an injury clause or something.
Something like that.
But it still released it.
Absolutely,
that set the precedent.
Yeah.
We probably didn't get angry enough about that at the time. But Ryder thing stinks to high heaven. And I tweeted before, there's a distinct lack of outrage about it. And I think that's because we're just accustomed to these sort of contrived outcomes in our game.
Time to fire up.
But anyway, I mean, he will get to Port Adelaide. Beams will get to Collingwood. Trade week, how long we got till Thursday?
Thursday next week, because the Jehovah's Witnesses have Etihad Stadium on Friday, so we'll have to finish up a day early.
It moves slower than Matt Windley across the half-back line. It really is very drawn out.
Now, Mick, we've got you in this morning, fresh from the courtroom.
Yes.
James Thurs, what is it, the pre-trial? Is that what it was called? What happened this morning?
The what?
What happened this morning? Fill us in.
So James Hird, and he wasn't actually there. His lawyers were in court today pushing for an expedited appeal, a fast-tracked appeal, to get this appeal against the verdict by Justice Middleton last month heard before Christmas. They were very lucky today. They had a good day. He's had a good week, James Hird, since he was sacked a few days ago. He has got a hearing on the 10th of November, which is a Monday, 33 days' time. And it'll be a one-day hearing where basically 3 judges will decide whether that decision by Middleton was correct or not, and we'll have a verdict probably early December.
Susan Kenny, is that the
Susan Kenny, Justice Susan Kenny? She's the new umpire in the chair.
So tell us, because I'm pretty sure that Hird wanted this to be pretty soon, and Asada wanted it as late as possible to prepare a defence. The date which has been set, who's that a win for?
It's a win for Hird. The interesting thing is that the judge confirmed this morning that the 34 show cause notices will be reissued on Monday, which you would have read in the paper earlier in the week.
Of course.
Now, that's going to happen as early as Monday, could be Tuesday. What that means is you're going to have this Asada situation running concurrently with the court situation, which is very messy. You might get the point where Hird wins his case in December, but you've already got 10 players who've admitted to being drug cheats and taking the Asada deal. So yeah, it's a mess. The story lives on.
But the fact that they could run concurrently, as you say, that's a win for James Hird as well, isn't it? Because that was what was placing him at odds with the club, whether he was going to delay the process. So that's another tick in his camp for him, isn't it?
It makes it hard to see how they can remove Hird as a result of this court action. I mean, they can sack him at any time and pay him out his money, like Sanderson was sacked early, or who was the other coach, McKenna. You know, you can sack a coach any day you like. You got to pay out the money. So Essendon have got this situation. I mean, it's a bizarre. I don't even think James Hird is down at Dockland Stadium. Is he doing the trades?
Hasn't been there yet, I think.
Well, how does that work?
So if he survives until November, it's getting pretty late in the year to sack him and find a new coach, especially if Bomber Thompson's still in limbo. So it's starting to stack up that is he a serious chance to coach round 1 next year?
Well, Mark Harvey is going to be an assistant coach down there, and he could be the fallback position. You know, he's obviously been a senior coach. He's a great Essendon man. The fans would be happy with that. But I think as every day goes by, it's more likely that Hurd will be coach next year, which is remarkable given what he's been through. He's like Ned Kelly. You just keep shooting at him, and he just sort of stands there and takes the bullets, and he might survive a lot longer than a few others around.
Question from Rhonda off the live blog here, Mick. One for you. Do you think Essendon is waiting for Thompson to get back from overseas to see where his head is at before making the final call on her?
I don't think there's any chance that Mark Thompson will be at Essendon next year in any capacity. I think he has flown the coop. I think his performance at the best and fairest was bizarre, to say the least. And, he's gone from that club. It was funny because that morning everyone thought he'd be the coach, and now he's gone, in my view. No, he'll be at the Gold Coast or out of football.
This is why Mick Warner is at Trade HQ. Dane Beams will not be at Collingwood. Mark Thompson will not be at Essendon. He'll either be at the Suns or out of football. This is why Mick is here. That is absolute gold.
Logic tells you all those things.
Amazing. Now, if we move on, we've got into Geelong Exodus. Now, Tom Lonergan, Alan Christensen and Travis Varco could all be out of the category. Is that a concern?
Well, it is. I mean, Geelong, we love Geelong. They're, in my life watching football, I love the Brisbane Lions that won those flags, and I've loved Geelong, but they won their 3 flags. And they had a model, didn't they, that they stuck firm to. That was no one got paid overs. We all here doing the job together. But that team is slowly decaying, and they're on the way down. And as a result, their recruiting and their list management has also veered off a little bit. And I'm surprised that that Lonergan is even being targeted by the Western Bulldogs. I mean, you're a doggies man. To me, his best footy's probably behind him. He's still a very good defender, and he can play on any of the big guns. But 3 years, $500,000 a year,
big coin. But to play devil's advocate, they've got the money in the cap. Higgins has just left. They've got a hole there. Yeah. I mean, you may as well spend it somewhere. Like, there's no point having it sitting there.
But is he the guy?
I don't think he's clearly not the answer. He comes in. Maybe Dale Morris goes in the year. He extends that experience down there for a little bit longer. He's able to teach a couple of the kids. But yeah, it's definitely a surprising move.
I'm surprised they wouldn't go to Richmond. Have been very quiet in this whole thing. Have got a stockpile of these sort of like Asprey, Griffiths, probably not Rance because he's an untouchable now. But wouldn't you be looking for a younger emerging defender rather than Tom Lonergan? Anyway.
Jake Batchelor in the mixer as well. He can't get a game. Question here from Jeff. What is wrong with the Dogs? Why are they after a 31-year-old, as you say, in Tom Lonergan? Why do they want him? And he's also said here, why don't they look at another player, as you suggest, Daniel Talia, Jake Carlisle, Sam Reid, Ben Reid, Tom Lynch from the Suns. So Jeff's thrown up a few. Why aren't they on the radar?
Well, Jake Carlisle's a good one. I mean, I don't know. The Dogs are going through an intriguing situation at the moment with their list bill. Will Cooney be there?
No.
You don't think?
No.
Yeah, where's he going to go? Carlton?
It looks like they're well down the path.
Which is strange for a club that's rebuilding. Carlton to
but they're going to get him for nothing.
Are they?
Or just about. He's just going to be...
Is he out of contract, or do they?
No, he's got a year to go.
So he'll be delisted, void from his contract. He'll go to Carlton as a free agent, and the Bulldogs will pick up pick 12.
That'll be great. Carlton can pay him $600,000. They'll get pick 6 for him. But on the Cats, I mean, it's probably not an exodus. I think Travis Varco was shopped around last year on the market again.
His best is behind him as well, I reckon. Christensen's obviously the one.
That's a big one.
He's a gun, but he wants to get out of town for personal reasons, and that happens.
Yeah,
it's happening with Dane Beams, partly. So look, he'll be a loss. And imagine Brisbane with Beams and Christensen thrown in.
It's pretty scary. Then you go through it. Sorko, Rockcliff, Hanley. That engine room is one of the best in the league. I love what
Brisbane have done. They went and got Greg Swan, who Carlton stupidly got rid of because of their infighting. Lee Matthews and the board snapped him up. They've been all over the papers. They had a great finish to the year. They've got a very good list. All the kids they lost last year, they've replaced.
Yeah.
And Lepic looks like a good coach. And Brisbane, they're back on the map.
And the kids they lost last year, like Carneses, no real loss.
Pollock's
the one. Yeah. Yo looks okay, but they didn't lose superstars. but they've brought in some.
Billy Longer he hasn't really done much.
No, I'm worried about his future.
Yeah.
Where no certainty to make it. Pick 8. Sam Doherty was pick 12, not setting the world on fire.
Yeah.
So the kids have brought in, you'd say they're almost ahead right now. And if they can get Beams and Christensen, wow.
In fact, I'm going to say this on this Trade HQ, that Brisbane are going to do a Port Adelaide. And within the space of 2 years, they'll be back up there pushing for top 4.
Al Patton, this is why we got Mick Horner in. Question here from Huda. Does Geelong go for picks with Christensen and Lonergan? And will that free up cap space for a big launch at Patrick Dangerfield in 12 months' time?
Well, Patrick Dangerfield is the name that won't go away. Now, I reckon he won't leave he's almost a certainty to leave Adelaide at the end of his contract, which is at the end of next year, I think.
Almost a certainty to leave.
Yeah. And so Geelong's probably the right fit. Where's he from? Moggs Creek?
Moggs Creek, boys, so down Geelong Way. That is
where there's smoke, there's blue cod. And all these things, he was linked in early days to what Melbourne say pick 2 and 3 or Collingwood. So Danger, get used to it. He won't be at the Crows beyond the end of next year.
Fascinating. any chance this year or not?
I wouldn't have thought so. You got to play a hell of a lot. I mean, pick 2 and 3, do it. But would you want to go and play for Melbourne? No, you wouldn't. So, no, I don't think it'll happen this year.
That is, wow. I mean, we're heading down the NRL path, aren't we? If we know that a bloke's going to be at Adelaide next year, but not in 2016.
I'm not saying it's certainly like he's told the club, but just logic would tell you that P. Dangerfield is heading home.
Question here from Nathan Weller on the Tiggies. Any Richmond news today? Have they made any inroads with Winderlick and or Armitage?
Yeah.
So that's the first part of it.
Well, I asked about Armitage today, and he is off the radar. In fact, he was barely there. It was just a bit of a blip at the start. I think there was an inquiry made of Richmond. There was some talk that Richmond would give up pick 11, which is now 12 for him. I mean, that's not going to happen. I think Richmond will go for the best available there, so they should.
They always nail that first pick, the Tigers. They're in good form.
Yeah, what's Ben Lennon going to be like? Is he?
I think he could be a good player. What was his first kick like?
Was a goal, was it?
Yeah, it was a set shot goal from 50 out. I reckon that's enough to show that he's got a fair bit of work with.
Winderlick's the other guy. It was an interesting decision by Richmond to go for him, but smart as well, because I reckon that small forward issue with Jake King going, the great Jake King, I think he'll be a good stopgap player. I know Richmond copped a lot of flack for going for those older Moneyball types, but you don't have to pay anything for him.
No.
So, but Richmond are keeping a pretty low profile throughout the trade. I think they figure, and people might say this is wrong, their list is good enough for where they want to be, but they've got a lot of money, so maybe they could make a play next year for P. Dangerfield.
Oh, it's no, that won't go away. Nathan Weller's thrown up a couple of Sams as well. We like a Sam at Trade HQ. Sam Gleeson, Sam Donnell. Any chance I'll have a look at either of those?
You'll have to talk to that one, Sammy. I've got no idea.
I can't see either of them are tracking to a top 8 side myself. Moving along.
Brutal.
What else have we got, Al? If not, we'll jump through Patrick Horan's right in here. Young Hawthorn big man Sam Grimley is looking for a fresh home.
Again, what you'll have to
leading goal kicker in the VFL, obviously a long way down Hawthorn's pecking order, so that one would make sense.
Is anyone interested?
Oh, yeah, well, probably not yet. He's probably a name which doesn't get really talked about till the second week of trade period. Yoda wants
just
to know.
On that, you mentioned the second week. The free agency period expires at 5 o'clock on Sunday.
Sunday,
is that right?
Yep.
So if the Ryder thing isn't done by Sunday, then it's almost certain that he'd have to either go through this grievance tribunal, or they'll just have to take the pick 17. So there's a bit of urgency. You've only got 72 hours for that deal basically to be done.
And 72 hours in trade week seems like about 5 minutes.
It's like a federal court case. It just drags on and on.
Jeez. Yoda wants to know, what's the hold up with the Chris and Jacks trade? Carlton likely to have another Goddard-style missed opportunity, and hearing we're into Cooney makes no sense. Well, the Jacks trade, I think, is going to get done.
Complex question. Start with Jack. She's been linked to every club in competition.
No doubt he wants to go to Carlton. He just got back from Bali. He wants to go to Carlton. He spoke to St Kilda. I think Essendon made a late fly, but definitely wants to get to the Blues and expect that deal to get done. Carlton, no doubt, is quite happily contemplating parting with pick 7.
Pick 7?
So
obviously, for who?
As part of the Jacks trade, they might
Seven.
They might get a pick back a little bit later. The Giants acquired pick 19 from Hawthorn this morning. So that
Is he that good?
Well, we don't know yet. I mean, he was picked 12 2 years ago. He can play either end of the ground. He's a big man. Carlton needs a big man. He's got 2 years of development into him. So
I reckon you got to question GWS's recruiting over the last few years.
No doubt. No, they've got a lot of crosses, but I mean, they're in a unique position where they had all these picks.
Yeah.
So they didn't have to go. They could take some risks.
Didn't do their homework, maybe? Or...
Some have backfired, no doubt.
Yeah.
Right now, who'd rather be the Giants or the Suns?
Oh, the Suns.
Yeah.
By a mile.
Mm.
What's he mean by have a Goddard-style missed opportunity?
I think he's referring to maybe when the Blues missed out on Goddard.
Well, that was
a little bit. I don't think it was a missed opportunity.
There
That
was brown paper bags involved.
it was
that
a
one.
stripped opportunity there, more likely. Is Sydney doing anything? Any news on Memory or Biggs, or is anyone possibly going to the Swans? Is Joel Pat full of chance?
Yeah, definitely. Oh, sorry, he's not.
Is he
he's
Giants?
moved to Sydney, but
Yeah.
Giants, I think. Yeah, I don't see him going to the Swans, but yeah, Sydney. Apart from obviously losing Malcheski, they've been pretty quiet, haven't they?
Yeah.
What about Tom Mitchell? What's his future?
Well, he's got to stay for at least one more year, but you'd imagine he's got to be getting frustrated. I mean,
Yeah.
he'd be number one picked in most sides.
I'd be frustrated if I was being paid $500,000 a year too. I don't think it's that bad for
Mate,
the young man, is it?
You're on more than that, Mick.
That's true.
Moving on now. What else have we got coming through off the blog? Coming through here. I mean, what's the next trade that's going to happen? What do we think's close?
Well, I think Beams will go right till the end.
Right
I mean,
till the
Ryder, it's got to be Ryder because there might be some smaller ones, but as we said, they've got till Sunday. It probably won't go right till 5 o'clock. Although there are some legendary stories in trading where the fax sort of, they used to have faxes. You probably don't know what a fax is. In the old days, the horse and cart days, they had fax machines. And there's some stories where the fax sort of came through with 30 seconds to go, and they run close to the breeze, some of these. But yeah, probably Ryder.
What about Mitch Clark and Lumumba? Their names which have sort of disappeared the past couple of days. Obviously, they both look certain to get to Geelong and Melbourne, respectively.
Yeah.
Any idea when they'll happen or what those clubs are going to have to give up?
I'm staggered that anyone would want either of those two players. I'm serious. I reckon Lumumba's just not worth the hassle. And Clark, I don't know. I mean, his best was great, but he's. What are they going to give up for Mitch Clark?
Well, the talk is it'll be pick 33, which is Geelong's second round pick. I think that might be 34 now. Well, how does that sit with you? Who wins out of that?
33. That's probably about right. I mean, you can get a great player at pick 33, but he has got upside. But I don't know. And again, Geelong, does it suit their model? Maybe not. But they do need a key forward.
Well, and
desperately.
Lumumba. Now, Collingwood's going to ask for Melbourne's second round pick, which is about in the early to mid 20s. The D's third round pick is already tied away for Billy Stretch, the father son. Would you be parting with the pick 22, 23, whatever that might?
I think Collingwood would be very happy to get a guy who's played 199 games. He might have 1 or 2 good years left in him. No, I think that'd be a win for Collingwood, who, let's face it, they've got some issues, but they've stockpiled a hell of a lot of talent. They had Freeman and there's Scharenberg who didn't play. They'll have, what would their picks be this year? They'll lose Beans potentially. They will have 5.
So they'll have 5 and 9, with 9 being Darcy Moore. Now that's,
pretty
that's
good.
a good starting point, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then you factor in, so Freeman, Scharenberg last year, Grundy's still young, Broomhead we saw later this year. Ben Kennedy's a nice talent.
Yeah, the problem is it's going to be a crash down there.
Yeah.
They're going to have a real lack of players in that 23 to 26 bracket.
But if they can get a Redden in as part of the Beams trade, Greenwood.
Brisbane are not going to give up one player.
Really?
But why would you? The guy wants out. You don't have the upper hand. Pick 5 and maybe 21 if it's Pat Phil. I reckon that's how it'll get done.
Okay.
25 will become 21. And they'll say, take it or leave it, and they'll take it.
Now, what that states me is I reckon this is very close to getting done. I reckon pick 1 is going to be...
Pick 1?
Pick 1 is going to be on the way to the Giants.
For what? How does that work?
Well, the Giants are they're stockpiling a lot of these early picks. I reckon they might end up with pick 7 from Carlton for Jacks. They just got pick 19 from Hawthorn. They've already got pick 4. St Kilda has stated that they want to get another 3 picks inside 20 again. And partner with, if you could part with pick 1 and say get 4 and 7 and give up something later as well, That's got to be attractive for the Saints.
4 and 7 for pick 1.
And maybe a later pick as well. That's
so why does GWS want pick 1 for Petrarca?
They are desperate about Petrarca. It was the same last year.
Petrarca or Petrarca?
Petrarca.
France.
He's from Italian background. We'll go with Petrarca.
Petrarca.
Bit more stylish.
Well, who would you liken him to? Who's he going to be like?
Oh, he's an explosive midfielder. He played most of his junior career as a half forward pocket, and then last year in the preliminary final attack cup, he went berserk, and he had about 240 Supercoach points. He took all these contested marks, kicked 5 goals, and then this year he really did develop into a midfielder.
So who's he like, though? Give us a like for like.
Oh, well, it's a bit early for that talk, Mick.
Cochin.
We'll go
Danger.
We'll wait on that, but he's a really explosive midfielder. He's a damaging midfielder. He kicks goals. Now, the Saints, he's probably not what the Saints are after. They want a big bloke. So if you can get a big bloke at 4 and another bloke in at 7, it relieves the pressure a bit. It's a good deal. The Giants like Petrarca. They're in the same position 12 months ago. Sauce loved a kid called Josh Kelly.
Yeah.
They knew that he'd be the second pick in the draft. So they did the Dom Tyson trade, and they got pick 2. So they were able to get Boyd and Kelly. They're the clear best 2 players in the draft. It looks like it's going to happen again.
Now, breaking news, which is extraordinarily logical news coming out.
There you go.
Because they have blocked the Ryder deal. Now, I don't know quite what the details are, Al, if you know what they are. But of course they blocked the Ryder deal because it stank. It had hairs all over it. You can't, as we said, you'll have clubs delisting players left, right, and centre to get a draft pick, compensation pick.
So why wasn't the Nick D'Alessandro trade blocked last year?
It should have been.
That is.
But anyway, we'll try and find out exactly what's going on there. But that's a very wise decision from headquarters.
So that's a big blow for the Bombers. So at the end of the day, Port Adelaide's still going to get Paddy Ryder. This is a blow for Essendon, isn't it?
Oh, huge. I mean, they came up with the idea on Monday. They went to the AFL and said, what do you think about this? Now, here we go. The AFL is saying Paddy Ryder will not become a free agent. It's good to see common sense prevail every now and then.
Finally.
That's a good decision. I'll just see what we've got here.
So basically that means that Essendon will not be able to release Ryder from his contract, allowing him to become a free agent and then therefore net a compensation pick. So that will not be allowed by the AFL.
And Port Adelaide have said, we go back to the drawing board and find a trade that satisfies everyone. Good luck with that. They're not happy about it. But, it just wasn't fair to the other clubs.
No.
What was Essendon's problem was suddenly becoming everyone's problem. And that is that they'd failed, supposedly, their contractual obligations. So good call, Gillen.
Question here from DD. What is Elliot Kavanagh and Cole Hardingham's value in terms of draft pick terms?
Again, that's for you. I think Hardingham was told 3 weeks ago by James Hurd that he probably wouldn't be getting a game. I don't know whether it was his management or not saying that it was related to the ASADA. It was like when Leroy Jetta was going to be delisted and he said he was quitting because of the ASADA thing. I mean,
it's a nice excuse when you're on the outer, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, Cole Hardingham, he doesn't have much.
That's not to overshadow what those guys have gone through, which is hell. But I don't. Kavanagh was what, pick 4 or
pick 19?
Pick 19. It's only 15.
But it certainly hasn't lived up to that billing. I can't see them getting more than a second, third rounder for him based on I think he's played 8 games in 2 years or something. So his currency isn't too high, and Hardingham, as you say, probably wasn't going to be offered a contract. So he might, he
might bob up somewhere, but.
You'd expect him to become a delisted free agent and get a chance that way if he does get another lifeline. More coming through here, Al, I think. So the big breaking news is Paddy Ryder won't be allowed to become a delisted free agent, and so the Bombers will not get a compensation pick for him. What other news is coming through? The only bad thing about the Ryder deal being blocked is that it would have been the end of the free agency compo pick, says Jess. So,
well, this is a fascinating situation where you get compensated for losing a free agent. I mean, most clubs will say you lose a free agent, you go and get another one. But
should top 4 clubs be allowed to sign free agents?
That would be a great idea. That if you finish top 4, you're playing a prelim, then you can't go for the elite free agent. So you obviously you'd be allowed to go for your delisted free agents, but your top ones. I reckon that'd be a great idea if they change the rules and just made it. You get Frawley going to Hawthorn.
So all the free agents,
unsavoury.
All the free agents so far have gone to top 4 clubs. Higgins, Waite North, Frawley, Hawthorn, and a little bit different, but Ryder's going to end up at Port Adelaide.
Yeah, the only one I can think who went to a lesser club is Cramery.
But that was a trade. That was a trade.
Yeah. So has there been a free agent who went to a lesser club?
I don't think any of you.
Matty White. So Matty White.
What combo did you get for him?
I don't think we got any
donuts.
And that shows you what a joke that formula is down there at AFL House. But because he would have been worth pick 10 in the end.
Yeah, good luck to you, Mick. Luke Loudon and Dan Gorringe update. Now, Luke Loudon, I think Graham Wright said this morning that he hasn't requested a trade yet, and Hawthorn, I think, would probably like to keep him. Depends on how the list spots fall. Yeah. But, I mean, he's a good one to have in the pecking order. You can understand if he'd want out. He's the fourth in line behind Hale, McAvoy, and Segler.
It's an extraordinary list.
Yeah, and Dan Gorringe has requested a trade to Port.
Well, he's had more clubs than Jack Nicklaus, hasn't he? Anyway,
I think Essendon might bob up and show some interest in Gorringe. With Ryder on the way, there's no doubt that they need a ruckman. They've put the feelers out for Jonathan Giles, but I think he wants to get to the Crows. Yeah. So Dan Gorringe might be one that they look at as well. Mm-hmm. What are the chances of the Dogs landing a top 3 pick?
Well, for who? How would they get it? Ryan Griffin?
I think this is dwindling. There's no doubt this is one of their clear objectives, get a top 3 pick so they can secure.
What pick have they got?
They've got pick 6. So it was 5 until Jane Frawley went and stuffed everything up. So they've got pick 6. They have to package that up with something. It's that to ensure that they didn't Paddy McCartan. Yep. But, yeah, as it looks at the moment, you'd suggest that they'll be taking pick 6 of the draft.
That's not a bad pick.
Beautiful. Yeah. Mick, I think we're just about done for today.
Yes, and it was great to have some breaking news for all the people at Trade Headquarters. The Paddy Ryder deal off the table, common sense prevails, and you'd have to say now that Essendon well up against it.
Thanks very much, Mick Warner, for your time on Trade HQ. We'll be back at 1 p.m. tomorrow.